Hello, 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 and welcome back to Arts Respond on WNHHLP, WNHH Community Radio. This is a collaboration between the Arts Council of Greater New Haven and WNHH, the sister station to the New Haven Independent. I'm Lucy Gellman. This is our first episode of 2022, and I could not be happier to have with me today musicians Minyoung Kong, Josh Halpern, and Maria Ayudenich. Did I do that right? No, I messed it up. I was like an iPhone. I messed it up like an iPhone.
I never should have said anything. I never should have said anything.
I'm your host. I will be half human, half iPhone today. Maria Ayudenich. I am so sorry about that. And we are talking about the Calais Chamber Music Series and their upcoming concert, Cracks in the Glass Ceiling. I don't know if it was like, I've spent too much time on a phone. I haven't had enough coffee today. I'm sorry, y'all. Cracks in the Glass Ceiling, which, and this is from their program, includes music by groundbreaking women composers Clara Schumann, Rebecca Clark, as well as living American composers Augusta Reed Thomas and Jennifer Higdon, which I probably also said wrong. And it will be presented next Wednesday night, so January 19th at the New Haven Lawn Club as the second installment in a residency that Calais has. So welcome to all of you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. So the first question, Minyoung, I want to ask you, which is, Calais at this point is it 2.5 years old? Is it?
We started in 2019, so I guess you're right. Like going into the third year, I guess.
Yeah. So I have been lucky to trace the progression of this series from a basement practice room in Henry Hall at Yale to different venues around New Haven, to the internet where you had to pivot during the pandemic, and then back to the New Haven Lawn Club. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about this recent residency with the Lawn Club for folks who might not be familiar.
So this residency has just began this like last fall in 2021, and we have had like a couple of concerts before this season at the New Haven Lawn Club, which was part of their concert series. So they used to run a concert followed by a dinner, like a city dinner, and the concert as a package. So we had participated in their concert, and I've been just keeping in touch with the members there, and some of them were actually became one of the board member, and so they started talking about this possibility that like having us as a artist in residence for their club, and this is a little different from before, because it is not the New Haven Lawn Club, but it is New Haven Lawn Club Preservation Trust that's hosting us. So they're a nonprofit organization, like totally separate organization from the club, and they're trying to raise the awareness of this beautiful club in like a historic place, and they were looking to host some like cultural events, and that our concert was one of their ideas. So we are just starting it this season, and I can't wait to how it's gonna evolve, in the next few years.
And I do want to talk about the wonderful variety of themes, but I also want to let folks know, right up front, one of the things you have spoken quite passionately about is wanting people to know that classical music is for them, whatever background they may come from. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how that really played into the creation of this series and its growth over the last 2.5 years.
Um, so my idea about this series started with my passion to create a space for everyone, no matter what kind of background or like what kind of education they have. I wanted to create a welcoming space for everyone to come together and like enjoy this universal language, which is music. And then especially chamber music has been always my passion, and it's like it's different than attending like the orchestra concert or like a big concert with lots of audience. Chamber music is more like it's like a family gathering. It's like you get to see musicians interacting each other, and it's it's intimate, and it tells you more than just music. So I wanted to introduce this magical world of chamber music to wider audience member, like a potential audience members in the greater New Haven area. And I think it's been a great journey so far. Like the season 20 to 21 was particularly difficult for us because we wasn't like able to do in person, but I think we made it so far, and yeah.
Absolutely. Well, so Josh and Maria, I want to bring both of you into this conversation and talk specifically about the program that folks can expect to hear next Wednesday night on January 19th. So tell me a little bit about both building the program for Cracks in the Glass Ceiling and the rehearsal process, because we are still in this thing, right? I think when March 2020 happened and COVID put a lot of musicians out of work, we didn't know that we would be looking at, something where now we're in technically the third calendar year, but it will be 24 months in like 2 months. So. And anyone this is very collaborative. Yep. Yeah, Maria, go for it. And I should say, Maria, you're a violinist. So just so our
I wasn't going to say anything important because the question of programming still goes to Minyoung because she came up with the whole program, and I love that you have 2 living composers as well. It's very important to include that. Would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, let me say a few words about our this program. So I'm very excited because this is our very first program to feature compositions exclusively by women composers, and as you know, for centuries the classical music world has sidelined women. However, this balance has been shifting in the past few decades, and I wanted to celebrate these musical stories of extraordinary women shattering the glass ceiling with this program. So I program pieces there that are relatively lesser known and underperformed. I think the most famous piece out of this program is Clara Schumann's 3 Romances. Other than that, all the rest of the program, they're not often performed, I believe, and they're amazing piece. So I'm sure the audience will be delighted to hear these works, like almost like a hidden gems of the 20th and 21st centuries. So that's a short stories behind this program.
And I have to say selfishly, as a woman, as someone who identifies as a woman, I love that you didn't wait until March. So thank you. That's when people are like, shoot,
Yeah.
we gotta roll out all of the
Yeah.
women in our arsenal. So I would like to ask all three of you about the rehearsal process, because that is something that we've seen change during the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't started rehearsing, the three of us, yet. We will start that tomorrow night. And I was very lucky to do a couple of Callus programs last season, when we were still obviously dealing with all of these issues with COVID. And it was tricky, but it was also such a breath of fresh air whenever we were able to get together, because, well, breath of fresh air, so to speak. You know, we kept our distance. We were indoors, of course. But we, you know, the first program that I did with Min Young was last December in 2020. And we were in this big church space in New Haven, all masked up, all staying in separate places, and then coming together for these brief periods to rehearse. But for me, it was the first time that I'd played chamber music live with people who weren't in my own household since the beginning of the pandemic. And then the next program that I did, our rehearsal process was exactly as it will be for this program, where we were all staying in Min Young's house, and we had kind of, you know, potted up for the program, and it was great. You know, you kind of there are a lot of projects that don't allow for that immersive experience, where you're not just rehearsing together, but you're living together and you're cooking together. And Min Young has a adorable daughter what is she, like 22 months now?
She's 32 months now.
32. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's so young. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were having a lot of fun. So this is going to be the same kind of process. Like, Maria and Min Young haven't met in person before, but Maria and I are good friends, and Min Young and I are good friends, and I know that they're going to get along great, and it's just going to be so much fun to spend these days together preparing this program.
Mm-hmm. Maria, feel free to hop in, you know, if you want to.
I mean, actually, I haven't been on Callus before. I'm even pronouncing that wrong. Callus?
Callus, yeah.
But my first experience with your program, with this series, is actually listening to Josh, Geneva, and you play this live stream concert. I mean, it wasn't live stream. It was like a premiere recorded.
Yeah.
I loved the whole production. I loved how you guys played, and I just, you know, I followed you everywhere, like on Facebook, on Instagram. I have to follow this series. I love it. So I'm very happy to be here and play with you guys tomorrow.
And one of the things I also will say, I love the idea of three musicians like potted up in a like it sounds like the basis of a screenplay that could really go either way, right? You need to like each other. But I want to switch gears just a little bit and ask all three of you, and Maria, maybe since we haven't heard so much from you so far, you could start us off. You know, the pandemic has been incredibly difficult for musicians, and so I would like to hear about all of your experience and how you have dealt with this as working artists during this time.
I mean, it's been difficult for everyone. I think we've all gone through all the stages of grief multiple times. Hopefully not the denial part, although there are people who are denying COVID. And we've become desensitized to everything, I think, by now, which is a little sad. But when we really think about what's happening around us, all the information, the misinformation, you know, from different countries from our own country, we're receiving different things all the time. And meanwhile, people are suffering, and like, it's been hard to think of our profession as something that is worth something in this difficult time. And I'm sorry for saying this. I mean, it's our livelihoods, but I just felt silly in various points of the pandemic thinking about what can we do, right? We can't really help people who are sick. We can't, people are dying, and what are we doing? We're playing on our instruments, right? But through all of that, I think we do have something important to share, and we are still doing it. If it brings peace to people, if it brings some solace, some, you know, just beauty to the ear when everything is chaos around you, that's worth it.
I think Maria said what I wanted to say. Details, yeah.
I think I totally know what you're getting at, Maria. I think it's hard to explain the experience of being a musician during the pandemic, or really being anybody during the pandemic, because for each of us, it's a strange thing because the experience was so similar for everybody, but at the same time, all of us were going through our own unique problems. And I think particularly when your livelihood, but not just your livelihood, the way that you relate to yourself and identify and engage with the world is sort of cut off. It leads to people, responding to it in a lot of different ways. So I can really only speak for myself, except to the degree that I have never had more conversations with more people about the ongoing anxiety and concern about the future. And there's so many people where a sort of casual check-in would very quickly evolve into a pretty profound conversation about what we were going through. And I think it was just that we were all alone in our homes with, the same people around us to talk about that with. And I don't know about you, but I definitely had this experience of being in the house with these people who were my loved ones or my friends or whatever. But eventually people kind of become wallpaper when you're just constantly around them. And so being able to vent to people outside is really important. But I think, of course, there were many people who couldn't be, making a living as musicians during the pandemic. And for a lot of them, it pushed them into perhaps new career paths where they had to figure something out, especially in these cases of these orchestras who were furloughed and they weren't getting any payment at all. It was a really desperate situation for a lot of them, especially if they had families. But then there were so many more people who didn't do that. And I think that this long period of waiting that all of us have done is a testament to how much we love what we do. And, for the world to basically say to you, you cannot do this with people in the way that you love to do it for a year or more. And for us to say, you know what, that's okay. We're going to sit tight and we're going to wait until we can, because this is how we engage with the world. This is, what matters to us. I think it's probably a couple of years ago, I would have interpreted it as like an inflexibility of classical musicians to adapt in the modern world. But now I think I take it differently as, when you have a passion that drives you so much, you're willing to sort of do whatever it takes to continue with that.
Yeah. And I would love to know specifically. So I always feel awkward asking this question. Early on in the pandemic, I would call arts organizations and individual artists, and I always felt like I was saying, tell me about your pain, because I was asking questions like, how much money would you estimate you've lost? How many gigs have been canceled? And it felt really hard to ask those questions. But from all of you, I would be interested in specific stories, because I think there are still folks who don't realize how hard it was for artists. And then also, Maria, to return to a point that you made, I was gonna, had you kept going with, why are we here playing all of our instruments? I was gonna push back on that, because the arts got us through this thing, right? I don't know anyone who did not Netflix their way out of, or live stream their way out of, some deep, deep pandemic blues.
I didn't mean to bring it down so much. I'm sorry.
Oh no, please. Also, please don't women apologize too much. So don't apologize. But I would love to know, specifically what the three of you were going through. So not just the feelings, but some of what happened in the moment, and perhaps it's still happening, because with Omicron, we're in this very strange moment where we're seeing another wave of shutdowns, another wave of cancellations. I hear probably once a day, usually more, about another show that had to shut down for a week.
Take it, Maria.
I'm just have in my head this one concert that's been planned 2 years ago, actually, and it's been put off 3 times. So every time I get this email, we're so sorry to let you know, the board decided we're not going to be able to do this concert, but are you available on these dates? And so, it's coming up, but I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get my hopes up. It's probably going to get canceled. I'm going to be fine. But it's just, always disappointing to see those messages where you really can't do what you love. But of course, I mean, if it's, people have to be safe. So if it's safer to cancel, it's better to cancel.
Yeah, I think I already shared my stories like last year to you, Lucy, about that. I mean, during the lockdown, the first lockdown in 2020, I was about to. It was like in March, and in April, the next month, I was about to travel to Spain to record my first album with Spanish violist Jesus Rudolfo, but we were stuck in the state, and we had to figure out to do it in a different way. So we managed to do it here at the different recording studio. So, and I also had like some concerts rescheduled to the year into the following year. But I'm basically freelancing around like New York and like New Jersey. So I guess I'm a little different in like unlike orchestra or like a other artist who has like this like a contract with other organization, but I'm more like I get work like just random, like I don't know my schedule until like the beginning of the month. So yeah, I guess it's been just up and down, and my priority has been keep my daughter safe. So that's been that's been my first concern, like not up to, I mean, these days too. I'm sending her a daycare, and we had like a couple of times that the teachers or like the kids contracted COVID-19, and they had to close the daycare for a week or something. Yeah, so I think it's still going on, but I think I'm dealing with it much better. Yeah.
Josh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on the day-to-day level, there was a little bit of a window where I didn't mind it so much. I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, obviously, it was every day new horrific things, and since we weren't so accustomed to it, it landed that much harder. But at the same time, I think musicians are sort of hesitant to take a break because the world is always going, and there are always other people out there doing things. And because of social media, we're always reminded of what all of our colleagues are doing. And so to have everybody take a pause was a little bit of a relief. I had spent the first few months of 2020 traveling through Europe and Canada and the States with the string quartet. And I left that job. Actually, our final concert together was in Florida just a couple of days after they had declared a state of emergency there for COVID. And so I was sort of like, you know what, I can do this, like staying at home, cooking every day kind of thing. It didn't bother me so much. And I went out to Colorado where my family was, and my best friend also came and joined us. And so we had a little bit of a thing going. But, I think that probably if I was a hamster and you just put me on the wheel, I would be perfectly happy, because I get pretty anxious. And if I just had a wheel to run on all day long, just to occupy myself, that would be enough. So that sort of sense of peace or of enjoying the break didn't last. And so anyway, long story short, before we got on the air, I told you that I had taken this job in Chicago, and it was my first like honest to God day job outside of music that I had ever had. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but it was. And it wasn't even really for the money. Like I had my friend who was also a freelance musician was actually making more money from the pandemic assistance package than I was on the job, but just to have a routine was really helpful for me. But then it quickly became obvious that this was going to be something that extended for the whole year. And again, like this sense of being away from the way that you process the world and the way that you engage as an artist, it just wasn't sitting well. So I left the job and I went back out to Colorado, and I got busy. And yeah, what Maria was just touching on about wanting to make some kind of contribution as a musician, it's kind of hard to know where to start with that. And I think that in each of our own ways, whenever we can be self-starters, there's so many ways to do that. And so you kind of find what you care about by the projects that you create. It's what you gravitate towards. So like Min Young, I think, is very good at telling these stories through programming and highlighting underrepresented works and underrepresented composers. And for me, I just get a real thrill from being with people and sort of like boots on the ground, like community organizing and stuff like that. And so while I was out in Colorado, I started this nonprofit that was all about bringing together local businesses that were struggling from the pandemic and artists who couldn't perform for audiences. And that was, in many ways, 2021 was a totally transformative year for me, because I had never been in that position of having enough time to really dedicate yourself to building something from the ground up, which is just an extremely time-consuming process. But we ended up doing a lot of concerts over the summer and raising a lot of money for the community. And it was such a relief to be busy in that way, because like every morning I would wake up with a bunch of problems that I didn't know how to solve. And by the end of the day would have figured something out. And then also I was meeting a lot of musicians and getting to make music in person, because we could do it outdoors. And it was in that short little window where we thought that COVID was going to be over before the fall. So
that was a nice, it was a nice time.
It was a nice time. Yeah, wasn't it?
So I want to pivot a little bit back to the program. And if you're just joining us, or if you've been here listening with us on WNHHLP, this is Arts Respond. I'm Lucy Gellman. I'm here today with musicians Min Young Kong, Maria Udenich, and Josh Halpern. And we are talking about a concert next Wednesday night at the New Haven Lawn Club that the Callows Chamber Music Series will be hosting, called Cracks in the Glass Ceiling. And it is called that, if you did not catch the first half of our show, because it is for women composers. And I want to talk, Min Young, a little more about the composers themselves, starting with Clara Schumann, who, in addition to being a composer, people may know her husband's name better, but also she was a mother to 8 children. And when I found that out, my body hurts thinking about that. And I don't know, like I am in awe that that this person who was clearly just extremely brilliant managed to do all the things. And so tell us and tell our listeners a little bit about why it was so important to start the program off with her.
I wanted to start our program with Clara Schumann's 3 romances, because Clara Schumann is probably the most well-known woman composers of the 19th century, and I guess she was more known as the wife of renowned composer Robert Schumann, but like I mean, long time ago, her music and her legacy has been brought to life thanks to this movement. And I was looking up about her, and I was surprised that Clara, Clara was like for the entire of her life, she was concertizing, and like I'm also in awe that she was able to do that, like like running after seven, 8 children's. But I learned that Clara stopped composing at the age of 36 after her husband's death, and she believed in her talents, but was also aware of the negative vibes that society portrayed on a woman who composed. So she said that I once believed that I possessed creative talents, but I have given up this idea. A woman must not desire to compose. There has never yet been one able to do it. Should I expect to be the one? I was very surprised to find this saying. I mean, yeah, find these words from her. So we can only wonder like what she might have achieved if she had lived, a century later. Who knows what might have happened. So yeah, that's about. Yeah, I think she's one of the great, pianists and talent composers, and a true pioneer who had a profound impact on the history of music, not just as woman, but as a composer and like musician.
And then we jump to. I want to talk about the fact that there are living composers. I always do get really excited when there are living composers on a program. But we also have Rebecca Clark, who was almost 100 years old. She lived to almost 100.
Yeah, right.
And and I'm wondering in what ways her music spoke to you, and you really thought, I want folks to experience this.
So this Rebecca Clark, she was born in England, but she settled in the United States after the World War I. So she spent the rest of her life in the States, and I found a very funny stories about her career that. Like she had this name Anthony Trent to help her. So she like people around her encouraged her to use like a male name as she entered this like competition or like this commission word. So she had this name for some time as Anthony Trent. So I was very intrigued that she had to borrow like a new identity to pursue her career. And yeah, I want to ask Josh and Maria if you guys have anything to add.
Well, what I've noticed listening to this piece and working on it, it's so dramatic and passionate and just overwhelmingly just out there. And I love that. And it's nice. Actually, I think well, no, the second movement of the Higdon is quite fiery.
Yeah. Fiery.
But yeah, there's just a lot happening in this Clark, and it's been a real pleasure to learn it, and it's going to be fun to finally play it for real with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's always nice to play programs like these because, the sad truth is that we just don't get to perform these works that often. First of all, they're not so well known, like Min Young said. But then, last year when, in the wake of George Floyd's killing, and a lot of conversations started happening specifically within the classical music community about racial imbalances and gender imbalances, of which there are many, pretty much anywhere you look. And there was this continuing conversation about like the myth of I don't know exactly how they put it, like, but the white sort of white male hero worship. And for me, it's much more a question of statistics. If you give educational opportunities and public platforms to all of the good little white boys in Western Europe, you stand a pretty good chance of turning out a Mozart or a Beethoven. And if you deny all of those opportunities to women or anybody of color, you're going to have fewer composers who are emerging from the woodwork. I mean, you're going to have fewer people who feel like it is their right to write music. And then you're going to have fewer people who can even get close to a stage. And so what's exciting about this moment right now, first of all, a lot of pieces by female composers, by composers of color, are making their way to stages, and a lot of major orchestras and arts institutions are commissioning works by people who have so far been less well represented. And so hopefully we're changing that statistical equation. And so the fact that these pieces have survived from Clara Schumann, who was very well known as a virtuoso pianist, but not as much as a composer. Fanny Mendelssohn is another person, as the sister of Felix Mendelssohn. And then Rebecca Clark. I mean, you just have to imagine it's not so hard to imagine because women are still doing it today, but like just how hard they had to fight, or even themselves and the things that were instilled in them, just like Min Young read from Clara, just to get the pen on the paper. So it's really fun. And actually Jennifer Higdon and Augusta Reed Thomas, both of them Jennifer Higdon is a faculty member at Curtis, where both Maria and I went to school, so we know her a little bit and have played her music before. And Augusta Reed Thomas did a residency while I was there. So it's really cool to get to encounter their works in different ways. I also remember, Maria, we did a project with Kaya Sariaho, which was really fun. I forget where she's from. Finland?
Up there, yes.
Up there, where it's cold and dark right now. But yeah, there's so many fantastic female composers. They don't get played enough. So it's really fun to learn this music.
And I also want to ask, and Min Young, maybe I'll kick this question to you first. We're in this moment. New Haven is very blue, which is a fact for which I'm grateful every day. Politically, it's pretty far to the left. But we're in a moment that is really divisive. And I think in 2020, everyone, Josh, to your point, everyone, like every single arts organization I can think of, put out their anti-racism statement, put out a statement about gender equity. And then, of course, about the folks who are living at those intersections. Fast forward a year and a half later, a year and a half later, and we're at a point that's very divisive in this country, where women's rights are and have for a long time been very much under attack, where in a lot of places, including in Connecticut, so like towns 20 minutes outside of New Haven, there are people freaking out about critical race theory, which no one actually seems to understand, but that's a different interview. Min Young, I guess, are you hoping that people will hear this and react to this in a way that embraces the forward movement and the forward progress that we can make as a country? Because a lot of the time, I feel like we're backsliding.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, this Callous Chamber Music Series is still a very small art organization in the community of New Haven, but I hope that we could make our voice as an organization that this highlights and celebrate the woman as a not I mean yeah as a whole, like and their own voices as a composer. So it'll be like, I think people will be reminded that we have so many great women composers around us, and we had so many great historic women composers. So it will be a reminder for everyone that we have to acknowledge, and we have to keep lifting up the lead for them and shine the light over their underperformed works. So I hope that this will be an event that that can tell many people. Yeah.
So before we go, I always like to ask musicians what they're listening to, and I'm really sorry if that's a corny question that musicians get all the time. I'm so sorry to inflict that on you, but I always want to know whether it's chamber music or or a really cool pop musician that you found on an album.
Well,
Whoever wants to hop in.
I feel like I should not be the first person to go. I've had phases of the year when I listen to this kind of music, but right now I'm really much into Soviet pop music. And it's very comforting to me, okay? I feel very connected to my no, but honestly, there are so many really gorgeous, I don't think I should say pop. It's not like the pop we know. A lot of it is just like really heavy, dark Russian romances where you just cry in your car when you listen to them. But that's sometimes what you want to do, right? But other than that, I'm trying to find different recordings of Haydn's Violin Concerto in G major. And there are so many Baroque orchestras and Baroque violinists who perform it, which gives me an idea of how it might have been performed. And actually, there are a lot of recordings, so I'm going through all the ones that I can find, and I'm falling in love with Haydn all over again.
Josh, what about you?
I have not been listening to a lot of classical music lately. I got really obsessed kind of with two people in the last few months. One was John Baptiste's latest album, We Are. And then that kind of got me on like a Sly and the Family Stone, like Neville Brothers kick. And so that's been fun. If I'm like walking around town, that's what I'm listening to, or if I'm cooking. Also, Stevie Wonder is like heavily into that mix. A lot of songs in the key of life. And then also, I love Jacob Collier. I know that it's such a cliche for classical musicians to love Jacob Collier. I alternate between admiration and rage because he is a year younger than me and he is just like insanely talented. But a lot of his music is based in funk music, which I don't know very much about. And so it's kind of been directing me into the funk category. Just to like think about rhythm in that way is really a lot of fun. Minyoung, what are you listening to?
I guess I've been listening to a lot of Brahms these days. I don't know, maybe it's winter, during the winter, but otherwise, I mean, I'm not the as a musician, it's kind of embarrassing, but I haven't really listened to lots of classical music these days. Yeah, I guess since I practice all the time, I guess I don't wanna listen to another so I tend to do something else, like not like not music, like all day, all day long. But I do listen to the music when I'm driving and like cooking and yeah. And I sometimes listen to K-pop. Do you guys know BTS?
Yes, that's excellent. You have all of you have excellent taste in music.
I'm gonna have to check out this Soviet pop though.
Yeah, I have to check it out.
Guys, I will send it to our chat. How about that?
That may be the soundtrack for you asked about our rehearsal period. This may be the soundtrack for our rehearsal period.
Yeah. Maria,
all of us weeping in a car together.
Yeah.
Maria, if there are any specific artists that you'd recommend, drop them in the chat and we'll share that out with the interview. Because we all, I mean, really, I think music got people through this time. It's still getting people through this time. I want to thank all of you so much. So I've been talking to the Kalos Chamber musicians from the Kalos Chamber Music Series. They will perform Cracks in the Glass Ceiling next Wednesday, January 19th at 7:30 p.m. at the New Haven Lawn Club. To buy tickets, you can go to Kalos CMS, that's KALOSCMS.org/2021-2022-season. And since that sounded very convoluted, I'll make sure we drop it in all of our social media platforms when we share the interview.
But I have to say the concert is currently sold out.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Even better.
But we will be recording the concert and we'll do a live stream the following week. So yeah. So people can still listen to the concert.
Absolutely.
You can also head over. You can also head over to the Kalos YouTube channel and watch other concerts that Min Young put together during the pandemic, especially. I'm not trying to promote myself, but I'm on a few of those.
I would recommend those. Having sat through those concerts in the very, very dark days of COVID, I would also recommend those concerts and the promo videos, Min Young, that you did, including a shower curtain becomes a fourth character in one of them, because you had to get creative with rehearsal and respiratory droplets. So I appreciate all of you taking the time today. Have a wonderful weekend. Be safe and enjoy rehearsing.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lucy.
Stay well.